Erev Tov, everyone. The Haftorah this week deals also with the numbers of the Jewish people. That's the connection to the parsha. Vayom mispar b'nei Yisrael kechol hayom asher lo yisofer v'lo yimod asher lo yimod v'lo yisofer. The numbers of the Jewish people will be as numerous as the sands of the seashore. Will not be able to be measured nor counted. So this raises a fundamental issue discussed by the Rishonim and the Meforshim. How far shall we take the words of the Nevi'im to be metaphoric? Or do we take them literally? In looking at the population of the world today, say over 7 billion people, you cannot say that the Jewish people are numerous relative to other peoples in the world. And in fact, if you look throughout the entire history of the Jewish people, we have never been numerous. And the Torah itself said that we would not be numerous. Lo mirubchem, I did not choose you because you would be many. We'll read in Chumash Dvorim. Ki atem ha'ma'at mikol ha'amim. You'll be the fewest of all nations. So what does the Navi mean when he says, if hayom mispar b'nei Yisrael kechol hayom asher lo yimad v'lo yisofer? And what does the Torah mean when he promises Avraham Avinu that will be kekochrei hashamayim? There are billions of stars and planets and asteroids and everything else going on in our universe. And the Jewish people are small in numbers. So from this, we develop a number of different theories that are expressed in the words of the great Rishonim. The issue is really raised by the Rambam in his letters, and then in the Mishnah Torah itself. We have the Navi Ishayahu says, V'gor zevim keves, v'aryeh kabokor toch yochal teven. The wolf and the sheep will live together without the wolf becoming aggressive, and that the lion will become herbivorous, will eat healthy food. What does the Navi mean by that? So in the time of the Rambam, as in all times in the Jewish world, there were many scholars who interpreted all the words literally. And therefore, in the time of Achris Hayomim, in the Messianic era, the world will change. And they were of the opinion that nature will change too. It'll be a different natural world. And part of the different natural world that will occur is that there no longer will be animals of prey and that no one will eat meat anymore, no one will destroy other creatures in order to have food. And that will become the new nature, so to speak. That's the way the world will look. The Rambam stood in opposition to that. And the Rambam's famous theory is that Ein Bein Yemos HaMashiach L'Olam Hazeh Ela Shibud Malchios Bilvad. Nature will not change. Nature was instilled at the moment of creation. So we say in Yigdal Lo Yachalif Oel V'Lo Yomir Daso, the Rabbon Shalom doesn't change. Nature doesn't change. And therefore, according to the opinion of the Rambam, nature will not change b'yemos HaMashiach either, or in Achris Hayomim. And that we should not expect it to do so. So how will he interpret all of these psukim of the Nevi'im? So the Rambam proposes that the psukim in Nevi'im are metaphors. They're not to be taken literally, but they are taken to be representative of ideas. So he says that the wolf won't eat the sheep. It means that large and powerful nations will no longer try and dominate smaller countries, and that numerous populations will no longer persecute minorities. So that's not a change in nature, that's a change in policy, how people will behave. And the Rambam, as a medical doctor, already in his time, was wary about eating meat, except for korbanos, because the korbanos had a kedusha to them that could protect you from any untoward results. But generally speaking, and there's a streak of vegetarianism within Jewish tradition. Rav Kook has a long essay on it, in which he espouses pretty much vegetarianism. But he does it from the aspect not of cruelty to animals, but rather from the aspect of refining our inner spirit and making us gentler people. There's a famous incident that happened in New York in Yeshiva's Torah Vadas. So the head of the yeshiva was Mr. Mendelowitz, Shraga Feivel Mendelowitz, who was one of the great Jews of the 20th century, and a very clever man. So certain students came to him and said that the yeshiva should not serve meat or chicken because it was cruel to animals. And that because of the cruelty to animals, we should not do so. And he told them that he recognized what they said, but he said, you should realize that you cannot manufacture tefillin out of spinach. So the idea of the Rambam to deal with these things metaphorically would also deal with population. The Navi does not mean that they will not be so numerous that they cannot be counted. But what the Navi means is that just like the sands of the seashore and the stars of heaven and snowflakes and other natural phenomena, no two are alike. Each one is different. So too, the people will recognize that we have to not only tolerate, but appreciate that no two are alike, that everything is different. The Ravid disagrees with the Rambam. The Ravid says, I don't know what will he do with the posuk that we had in last week's parsha, Vashibosi chaya roa min haaretz. I will see to it that there be no more animals of prey in the earth. So all the Meforshim say, what's the kasha the Ravid asks? The Rambam will say that that's a metaphor also. And therefore the answer is, that's a posuk in the Torah. The Torah you cannot take as metaphors. In the Nevi'im, it's possible to say that what the Navi said is meant as a metaphor. It's not meant to be taken literally. But in Torah, every word is what it says. And therefore, that's why the Ravid asks in the Kasha from the Posuk here in Bechukosa, because what will he do with that? Now, this is an ongoing discussion amongst all the great Meforshim throughout all the generations. How shall we interpret things? So there was a time when the majority of people felt everything were allegories. There was a time when the rabbi struck back and said that it's heresy to say that it's allegories. And in our time, we don't hear this discussion very much because we deal with other issues, but it's one that should be considered. So what do we say about population? What do we say about numbers? Well, in the whole history of the Jewish people, as I mentioned, we've never been numerous. There were about 3 million Jews at the time of Yeshua ben Nun. 2,000 years later, at the time of the Churban Bayesheni, according to Josephus, there are about 5 million, 5.5 million Jews in the world, in the Roman Empire. 10% of the Roman Empire were Jews. Well, that's also 2,000 years up from now. So I would say, to put it into perspective, 2,000 years ago, there were only about 25, 30 million Chinese in the world. Today you have 1,700,000,000 Chinese. And the Jewish people are what? And the highest estimate is 15 million. So that's a problem. The Torah itself raises the problem, because the Torah says, so therefore we are almost forced to say that the words of the Navi in this week's Haftorah have to be taken metaphorically. And especially if we adopt the opinion that nature does not change, so that certainly will be true. But again, who knows? And therefore, amongst the scholars in Israel, the debate still continues. How do we look at these psukim, and how do we look at the count of the Jewish people? Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Rotz HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakar Tzis Yisrael לפיכך חיבר להם תורה ומצוות שנאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר.